My favorite from Out of Town memory is when we competed at Acapella Armageddon, which was a competition in the basement of the Middle East in Cambridge. It was us against a bunch of college groups. There weren't really any semi-pro groups around at that time. This was 8 years ago now. And I think it was really a turning point for this group. We won the competition, we won some money, we got some studio hours, and that really led the way to our first album. And I think that's when we realized we could do more than just drink beers at Mark and Dan's apartment.
My favorite gig in From Out of Town would definitely be Acapella Armageddon. That was probably the coolest moment of being in From Out of Town, which like levels of coolness can vary, but being like the go-to group at that competition and winning, and people really thinking we had a really unique sound, that was really special. I think that was probably my favorite gig.
My favorite From Out of Town gig would have to be the gig where we won our first hours so we could record our album. It was the first time we ever all wore jewel tones. It was very exciting. We all looked great, we sounded great, and we had 3 gigs that weekend, and we were all exhausted but just running on pure adrenaline, and it was so much fun to finally feel like we had a good sound and really had defined what our group was going to sound like.
I think my favorite From Out of Town gigs are when we make a lot of money, because we're allowed to then take that money and do fun things like travel and go on retreats. So whenever we're going to get paid, I'm a happy camper.
We did an album release party, I think it was 2013. I think it was at Church of Boston, and we, for some reason, did our mic check at a slightly lower volume. So during the actual concert, when we were at full volume, we were singing Circus, and there's a bass drop at the very end of the song, which like kind of closes out the song, and it sounded awesome. It sounded really, really good, but the audience kind of cringed because it was so loud. It was like deafeningly loud. So I take pride in that moment a little bit. I think that was probably my favorite gig.
My favorite From Out of Town gig was I think it was in Faneuil Hall. It was around Christmas time, and we were, I think, performing I Wish for the first or second time, and it was really loud, and it was really challenging for folks to hear us, and we all were like bundled up very, 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 very tightly. And I just remember like just being so like loud and excited as a group together, and like our energy was like off the charts. I remember just like walking out, Alex, like Marguerite, like slapping you in the back, just like so excited. Like it was such a fun camaraderie that happened in that gig, and it made me really excited.
Favorite From Out of Town memory / gig is probably it must have been one of the first gigs we did, because it was in that first year when we went to Faneuil Hall and we're singing in like the weird upper area where it was just echoey and no one gave a crap that we were singing, but we had a grand old time and sang some of those great medleys.
One of the biggest ones is when we did our first real competition that we won at the Middle East downstairs, and we did some of our new arrangements, and that was the moment I think we all realized like this is something really special.
My favorite gig was our nerd night at BU, which was a really fun show, and we all were dressed as our true selves, nerds, because we were generally a pretty nerdy group, and being able to dress like nerds seemed really fitting. And I specifically remember wearing some high water pants, suspenders, some glasses that had windshield wipers on them, and a handprint on my ass, which I think was a good touch. But everyone in the group has had great outfits, and it was really fun to dress up.
One of my favorite memories From Out of Town was it was a Halloween concert back in 2009, and we all dressed up in great Halloween costumes. It was at the Student Union in Boston University. Phil and I dressed up as nerds with suspenders and helicopter hats. We put on a great show. We had a great party afterwards. I'll never forget that night. I also will never forget the goodbye party you guys threw for me at our house, a bar that no longer exists in Alston. One of my last nights in Boston, it was so bittersweet for me. It was sad, but it was a lot of fun. It showed just how sweet and how fun everybody from out of town is. That's how I describe you all. That's how I'd always describe the group. I will never forget, that night and what it meant to me before moving to Chicago.
My favorite from out of town gig has to be at the Bitter End in New York. There was just so much amazing energy there the entire night, and I think we really, hit it out of the park.
My favorite gig with From Out of Town was actually the first time I ever saw From Out of Town perform at the Bitter End in New York City. That was right before I moved to Boston, and I just did not know that a post-collegiate group could be that good and also be that sexy. And then I just had to wait for Tanner and Joe to quit so that I could join.
There was this one random little gig that we did, and I have no idea where it was, but it was at a school. And there was a really small group of us. I think I might have been beatboxing, which is not the best. But yeah, we got to perform for kids. And they thought it was cool. That made me feel cool. That's it.
My favorite From Out of Town gig so far has been singing at a gala for an organization called Ducks Unlimited. The whole thing was pretty indescribable, and I would say if you haven't heard about it, you should ask a current member about it after the show.
My favorite gig is probably Boner.
My favorite From Out of Town gig was the one that we did in London, because it's the only one that I was crying most of the way through because Dan was proposing to Becky, and it was great. And also the accents were pretty fun, so that was cool.
I think that some of my favorite memories have come from our retreats, some of our gigs, especially the gigs where we got to travel. London was a great experience with the group.
I think my favorite gig was the London Acapella Festival. We opened the show on Saturday night in downtown London. The Swingle Singers were there. The audience was incredible. The sound engineer was incredible. I think it's one of the best shows that we've ever had at an amazing venue. And it also happens to be a show that I wasn't singing at, so maybe that's why we sounded so great.
Favorite From Out of Town gig? London. Come on. Come on.
My favorite From Out of Town gig, I think would have to be London. We did just a lot of really cool things there. It felt like different for us. We explored artistry in a different way because of the festival that we were at. Also we surprised Becky and sang for Dan and Becky's engagement, which was just gonna cry now. That and Chicago Sweeps, that was also a really intense performance. We prepped for that crazy, and everything was on that stage, so that was really important too.
My favorite From Out of Town gig would have to be the London Acapella Festival in 2016. That was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
My favorite From Out of Town memory / gig was when we were at the London Acapella Festival and Dan proposed by tricking me and having From Out of Town sing a song to me, and it was really sweet, and everybody was there, and it was great. And then we all went out dancing afterwards, and we were dancing with such vigor we almost broke the dance floor, because when From Out of Town dances, they dance hard.
I think my favorite gig was probably either my first or my last with the group. Nothing more than that, just really significant for me. Joining From Out of Town was a big deal.
My favorite From Out of Town memory has got to be our Cape Cod retreat. It was so many years ago. We learned a brand new song, Lazy Song, and at the end of that weekend, we actually performed it at Lansdowne Pub, where we won the competition and went on to win our own show at Bill's Bar.
So my favorite memory from Out of Town is one retreat where we were up in the mountains and someone calls us and says that their car broke down. So we send someone else to go help them, and then their car breaks down. So over the course of the first night, 2 or 3 cars broke down, and it was just a hysterically unfortunate beginning to the weekend, but luckily it could really only go up from there.
Choosing a favorite gig is very hard. I think it would probably have to be the epic Christmas party in the mansion in Leslie.
Honestly, it's a collection of memories, but it happens at a specific time in the group, and I think that a lot of us can relate to that, both as musicians, artists, and whatnot. But it's a time where you've been working on the pieces of a song, and everyone gets together and we sing it for the first time, but we like nail it at that time. We like really, really nail it. The music flows like it was meant to, and it's a shared feeling of beauty and pride in a very intimate setting where only we experience that. And it's those memories, those moments where I feel the group grew, and it began to recognize its abilities more and more. So essentially for every song that we sang, that rehearsal is one of my favorite memories.
So my favorite from out of town memory is probably when you crazy people let me make a music video for you, and we somehow got into a pretty awesome venue for no money. But shit, it was a lot of fun, and I got to hang out with from out of town for 2 days and do something that I love. So that was freaking dope.
I have to say, some of the most fun I had with From Out of Town was when we made the Lonely Boy music video. That was so much fun. It was so cool to watch all of y'all's talents come out in different ways. And we did it in such a historic part of Boston, and it's just really cool to have the group memorialized like that in video form.
So my favorite from out of town memory would definitely be the weekend of the Vermont alumni retreat on Saturday night when we went to a nearby pond and the group sang Hey Jude as the sun set, and it was probably the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life, and it sounded perfect.
My favorite from out of town memory is getting through the customs line at London Heathrow and performing at the London Acapella Festival. It was amazing.
My favorite from out of town memory is probably being in London after Dan and Becky got engaged, and we started a dance party in Poppy's, and we almost broke the floor with all of our dancing. That was really fun.
My favorite from out of town memory, by far, no question, the London Acapella Festival. Flew across the ocean to come home with a fiance and got to do it with my best friends. It was an incredible few days and something that I'll always treasure.
We flew out to do Harmony Sweepstakes out in San Francisco, the finals, and that night we ran to the airport, ran to catch our gate. Some of us did not even change out of our gig attire, myself included, and we were probably wearing blue trolls. It's the beginnings of that. And anyway, that was a Saturday night on the West Coast, and Sunday morning, I think, we had an audition for the sing-off in Manhattan. And we got off the plane in New York, went straight to our audition, and I think at the airport, like LaGuardia Airport, I remember, and I have this vision of Katya bending down to dry her hair under a hair dryer, a hand dryer in the ladies' bathroom at LaGuardia Airport, because we had done a quick change and a quick washing of our face and hair in time for our audition.
So, my favorite memory with From Out of Town is probably the time when we competed in San Francisco and then ran off the stage to catch our flights so that we could audition in New York like 10 hours later. And we somehow made our flights.
My favorite From Out of Town memory would be driving up for the Sing Festival gig in Toronto. Everybody crammed into 2 huge rental vans and stopping at Niagara Falls on the way home. That was pretty awesome.
FTown Ladies Nights are definitely a favorite. And I know, gentlemen, that, you know, it's not as inclusive as some of our other events, but we have awesome snacks. We have a great time. We usually get through a couple bottles of wine. And without From Out of Town, I would not have From Out of Town Ladies Night.
I think my favorite memory is the Chicago trip that we went on for Harmony Sweeps. We had done a lot of work preparing for that set and rehearsing, and we sounded so good, and it was just like one of the best performances that I think we've done as a group, even though we didn't win. But it was a really worthwhile experience, and I think we had a really fun time bonding over the experience as well.
My favorite part about being in From Out of Town was the swag. Just kidding, it was the people.
What is your favorite From Out of Town memory? I would say my favorite From Out of Town memory was singing on Newbury Street, because I really enjoyed singing with my friends out in public to strangers. It was really fun to serenade people as they were walking by and making them feel bashful. And we would put down a hat and collect money, and we would take whatever we earned and use it for drinking money and party that night. And that was always really awesome.
I think honestly, some of our retreats where, we've just gotten to spend such wonderful time together, or going to Berlin with the whole group for a birthday party, extended birthday party. All of that was wonderful.
My favorite townie memory was definitely in Berlin when we ate so many doner kebabs.
My favorite From Out of Town memory was probably playing superlatives on some retreat. I think I was the most likely to get a genital piercing, and Alex Marguerite was like most likely to kill someone, or something like that. For the record, no genital piercing, and I think Alex has yet to kill someone, but I'm not sure about that.
When it comes to favorite memories with From Out of Town, I think there's always like the moment of finishing a really good show is amazing, and I think that happens. Like we always have that same feeling. But also the things that flood back are all the things we do together in our spare time outside of rehearsal. I think about, we recently did some escape the room activities. From Out of Town has come to volunteer at St. Francis House with me, which is a place in my heart that I am connected to in the community. And it's so amazing that my friends and family from Out of Town would give up their time to commit to something like that with me.
One of my favorite gigs is when you guys all came to Chicago and performed with my group in Chicago, Deep Dish, a cappella. You guys were fantastic. You lit up the bar that we were at. You guys were fantastic. I always love listening to you guys, and it was so fun to have you out in Chicago and see you all again. So that had to have been one of my favorite gigs, just to be able to see you all again at my home base now here in Chicago.
One of my other favorite memories is when we sang Defying Gravity during my first retreat, where everyone was standing on tables, on chairs, and sang it from beginning to end with the final belt and all.
My favorite memory with From Out of Town is actually every year we get together right here at Glenville Stops and celebrate the greatest day in Boston of the year, which is Marathon Monday.
My favorite From Out of Town memory was probably when I went to audition for From Out of Town, and my vocal percussion idol, Tracy, ran my audition, and there was nothing more terrifying than that, right? Someone that you're like obsessed with and have like watched videos of, and like aspire to be more like, then like is judging you. And then weirdly at the same time, he and the rest of the group like emitted this like loving feeling at the same time. It was like terrifying, but I also felt safe and excited. And that memory for me was this like weird bridge of like what I hoped to get out of like a musical experience, but like never could have imagined that like I would both be like meted by these like incredible people and also feel so loved and accepted by them.
Favorite From Out of Town memory. This is weird, but for some reason I have this flashbulb memory of being down in Memphis for the first ever NAC performance, and going to a restaurant with you guys and sitting around a big table in this really southern place where I think I got chicken and waffles. And and we all played a game of Most Likely To. I don't know why that memory just, it stuck with me and I cherish it, so.
One of my favorite from out of town memories is just before I had to leave the group, we went down to Philadelphia for, I can't even remember what the festival was called, some sort of a cappella festival. And it was really cool because we got paired with another group, Group for Thought, and we kind of learned a song on the spot, and it felt like a culmination of everything a cappella. There were all these a cappella fans around. We went to a bar afterwards that was literally packed with only a cappella people, and it was a great send-off.
My favorite part about being in From Out of Town was having scheduled time to hang out with friends a couple times a week.
So I guess my favorite thing about being in From Out of Town, for me specifically, I joined the group at a time when I was just lost. I was sad and alone. I know this sounds really depressing, but it was like that first couple months right out of college in a new city. I didn't have a lot of friends yet, didn't have a job that I liked, and I was just like kind of miserable. And honestly, being a part of this group who welcomed me with such open arms just socially was a godsend. But on top of that, it allowed me to continue this thing that I loved, you know, being able to sing with a bunch of nerds, something that had been like a really core to my experience in college, and I was really sad without. And so it was really nice, and again, sort of a saving grace to be able to continue doing this thing that I loved with this group of people who were just, you know, a bunch of magical, nerdy humans who became some of my lovely friends.
I would say being able to hang out with my friends, and I felt like it was something that I just really enjoyed being a part of a group, that we had fun together, singing music, and oftentimes hanging out afterwards. And for me, I almost link it all together in my mind as when we were in good company at Emmanuel, and then we were the Testostertones, all guys group, and then From Out of Town was birthed. And so there were some common members in some of those groups, but whatever the lineups were, it was always just fun to be a part of because they were my friends and I enjoyed being with my friends.
One of my favorite things about being in From Out of Town was the fact that we rehearsed in my apartment, and I literally had 15 of my closest friends come over twice a week.
Oh, what was my favorite part about being in From Out of Town? That's a stupid question. It's obviously all the people. They're freaking great. Next. For real though. From Out of Town was the first group of people after I left home in New York to go to college where I really found community, and that wasn't something that I was really sure could be built to the extent that I had felt that I had it back home with some of the people I grew up with. But spending a few years with this group of weirdos renewed that hope in me, because that's what happened.
My favorite From Out of Town memory is when Phil iced Dan at our wedding.
But I think one of my favorite things about From Out of Town that is a compilation of a bunch of memories is just how much time we spent together that wasn't just rehearsing or just performing, but it was really this family that we created and a community. And I just remember summers like partying together and road tripping together and going on retreats to the Cape, and just really becoming a real family. And I just love that.
Being a part of From Out of Town to me has always meant that you're so passionate about making music with people that you love, that no matter what life throws at you or what people say about the life that you've chosen, you don't have to give it up. that's always been very relevant and very special to me, and that's what the people in From Out of Town convinced me of and supported me through, and that's invaluable. That was my favorite part about being a part of From Out of Town.
My favorite thing about being in From Out of Town was that we took ourselves seriously to get the job done, but not so seriously that we couldn't have a good time. We had hard conversations, we fought hard for the things that we believed in, and I think our music and our cohesion as a group was better for it.
I think my favorite part about being in From Out of Town is, simply put, the people. There's nothing like a group of people that love making music so much that they give their free time to do it, to the best of their ability every, few nights a week. And what's wildly more impressive and incredible is that they're somehow more dedicated to each other than even their craft sometimes. And I think being a part of that group during moments of personal crisis or during moments of, extreme joy, it was really special. It's probably the thing I miss most. I miss seeing an incredibly excited group of people on a Wednesday night or a Sunday, walking in and just so excited to be around those people for a few hours, regardless of what else is going on in your life. I haven't experienced anything like it since I've left.
My favorite part about being in From Out of Town has to be the people. I've always been in it for the people. Music's great, guys. Music is great, but the people are even greater. I enjoy spending all of our time together, our free time, our practice time, our gig time, our commute time. I mean, come on, any opportunity to get in a car with a bunch of people who will sing through an entire musical soundtrack. I'm looking at you, Liz or Joe. Yeah, those are the best parts of From Out of Town.
I think my favorite part about being in From Out of Town was just being challenged, learning how to sing better, be better, having the education of learning how to do syllables, learning how to sing the right notes better, get better pitch, tone, across the board.
And my favorite part about being in From Out of Town is walking into a room full of people ready to give unconditional love and support no matter what to one another. It's really a great feeling.
My favorite thing about being in From Out of Town is that nobody's getting paid. We're all here for the same reason, and that's to make cool shit with your friends.
My favorite part about being in From Out of Town is just the people. It's such a group of kind and funny and fun and talented people, and it's such a blast to make music together.
My favorite part about being in From Out of Town, honestly, okay, this is so cheesy, but the family, community, whatever you want to call it, I was immediately besties with everyone the minute I joined the group, and I'm still friends with all the townies, and love all my townies, even though I was only in the group for 9 months. So that's kind of awesome.
My favorite memory with From Out of Town would have to be when we released Time and Chances. It was truly a labor of love, and the fact that we were able to create a collection of neo-soul music, which is my favorite genre, was something that I will never forget.
My favorite part about being in From Out of Town would have to be the friendships, the relationships, the family, and the community that it gave me while I was working on finding my place in Boston after college.
My favorite part about being in From Out of Town is serving as the group's business manager. On a team, everyone needs to kind of identify their role, and I have embraced, kind of taking on some of the behind-the-scenes duties, managing our budget and scheduling gigs and traveling, finding retreat houses, that sort of thing. And I just love it. I love taking care of some of those administrative tasks. So, I was never a powerhouse soloist, so being the business manager has kind of fit for me, and it's been a lot of fun, and I've been able to see the group grow, and it's just been great.
My favorite part about being in From Out of Town is, without a doubt, getting to see my best friends twice a week.
What is one word to describe From Out of Town? Jazz!
Passion. I think passion is probably the one word. It takes a lot a passion to do what you guys have done, to be adults 10 years out of college, 10, 15 years out of college, and still be passionate about making this music and doing it with such utter conviction.
The word would be family. It always felt like a family. Everybody always was down to hang out. There was always something going on, and it really felt like more than just a regular group of friends.
And one word I would use to describe Vermont Town. Has anyone said coral?
Vermont Town, in one word for me, is a family, always.
The one word I would use to describe Vermont Town is coral. Just kidding. Skin suit. Just kidding, it's love.
One word I would use to describe Vermont Town: loving.
If I had to describe Vermont Town in one word, that would be community.
If I were using one word to describe Vermont Town, it would be Volta.
I would definitely describe Vermont Town as a family.
I would say friends, because I always felt like I enjoyed going to practice because I was going to hang out with friends.
My one word to describe Vermont Town is journey.
The one word I would use to describe Vermont Town is happiness.
One word to describe Vermont Town has to be love. It's just such a wonderful community of people, and we're all coming together around common things like music and appreciation for the arts.
One word that I would use to describe Vermont Town: love, family. That's two.
I think I would use the word eloquent.
One word to describe Vermont Town, I think I would have to say home. Home. Home is where the heart is.
Belonging, I guess I would say.
One word to describe Vermont Town is effervescent, both because we are enthusiastic and vivacious, but also because we produce a lot of gas. Chris.
One word that I would use to describe Vermont Town is family, because more than anything else, this has been a close-knit family, long-term friends for the rest of my life, hopefully, that have just been such a big part of these last, for me, 7 years. And I'm sure for many other people, they feel the same way.
If I were to use one word, I'm not going to say family because everybody's going to say family. I think lasting, maybe, something along those lines. Yeah, that it, the group lasts.
The one word I would use to describe Vermont Town, and this took a good amount of thinking, would be soulful. I think that describes our music, also our performance, and just the people in the group. We are passionate and loving and crazy individuals, and there's just a lot of soul in everything we do, whether it's a show or a game night.
To sum up Vermont Town in one word, I would say joyful.
Vermont Town in one word: funky. Incredible.
And one word to describe Vermont Town: supportive.
If I had to pick one word that describes my Vermont Town experience, it would be family.
My one word to describe Vermont Town: committed.
One word I would use to describe Vermont Town is family. I know it's going to be probably on everyone's list, but I think it probably rings most true for me because, we love each other like family loves each other. Sometimes we annoy each other. Sometimes we don't want to get up off the couch and see one another, but at the end of the day, when Vermont Town needs us, when any member of Vermont Town needs us, we all come together and we're there for them. And, you know, it's the best parts of family. So from out of town's family.
One word to describe from out of town. I think the best way to put it, and I'm going to use a hyphen, life-changing. You know, without this group, I wouldn't have met my wife, and these people are my best friends. I know that 10 years from now, they're still all going to be a part of my life, and I'm so thankful for the opportunity to sing and create music and just be with people who care and share my passion for a cappella. You know, we nerd out together, and I love it. And I know that without this group, like, there would be a void. And this this group has meant a lot. And I'm thankful.